EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.
Welcome to this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. We're coming to you from our studio with an insightful conversation lined up. Now, in this episode, we unpack how policy shapes the education system for refugees and how EdTech is stepping in to support learning in camps and settlements. Kenya is shifting from a camp-based humanitarian model to an inclusive development-focused approach where refugees and host communities access integrated services, including education. Now, Kenya affirms that all children and youth, refugees included, have the right to complete the full education cycle from pre-primary to tertiary. But big challenges persist. Many refugee learners remain out of school, transition rates are low, and teacher capacity and quality vary widely. So what lessons, innovations, and practical strategies can improve learning outcomes for refugee learners through technology? That's the question that we'll be asking. Thank you all for joining us on this edition. I'm your host, Ian Wafula. In studio today, we are joined by Abdullahi Mire, who's the founder of the Refugee Youth Education Hub. Thank you very much, Abdullahi, for joining us. And online, doing things a little bit different, we're joined by Abdinoor Abdi, who's the founder and CEO of M-Lugha. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. I think it would be unfair to start this conversation without acknowledging your award back in 2023, Abdullahi. And the UN Refugee Agency announced that you are the laureate winner for that year, just because of the kind of work you're doing with the youth and giving about 100,000 books to young refugees. Tell us a bit about that and how that came about, include some of your work as well.
Thank you for having me. To me, that was calling. It started way back in 2017. I was doing a work as a journalist. I went to one of the schools. Of course, do not forget, I grew up in that camp and nothing was new to me then there. So one day, as we were journaling in one of the camps, one young student, I remember she was at Form 3 then, approached me to asking for a book. And then she gave me a little bit flavor on why she needed a book and the reason behind her need of a book. She said, look, Abdullahi, I'm in the Form 3, that's the 11th year. In the secondary school, I want a biology book because I want to be a doctor. She said, I asked her, do you have books? She said, no. Yes, we do sometimes, but I have to share a book with 15 other girls. And you know, for boys, you can share a book during the night, it is safe. A camp like Dadaab, where I grew up, there's insecurity and fear of gender-based violence at the night. So she couldn't go to another girl's house to read at night. So that fear blocks her, denies her a book 11 days because there are other 12 girls who need the book. So I came back to Nairobi, started doing it, a community mobilization with friends who I know and who I didn't know. Abdinoor was among the people who are like friends. Then we started collecting books. It started like a small thing. With time, we started collaborating with corporate organizations, and we went on and on and built 3 libraries, field books at schools. And you know,
congratulations,
that was
and thanks for the work you're doing. We'll talk a lot about the gaps that you also decided to fill, but let me bring in Abdinoor as well. Maybe you can tell us about your work, Abdinoor, when it comes to M-Lugha and the kind of context in which or setting in which you're operating in the camp settlement, and what gap you're trying to fill.
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you for the team for this opportunity. My name is Abdullahi Mire. I'm an education technologist and the founder and CEO of M-Lugha. So in M-Lugha, I think the problem we are solving is not only for the northern part of Kenya or the rural communities of Kenya, but also refugees are part of the community that we are serving. What we are serving is to bridge the language barrier in learning. Because if you go to rural communities, especially in the northern part of Kenya, you find learners in higher grades who cannot comprehend, cannot read and write. The reason being the language of instruction is not favoring them because they walk to the classroom knowing their first language, but unfortunately, there's no a curriculum that understands them. So what we have done as M-Lugha is we try to translate the curriculum into a language that they understand. Currently, we're in 19 Kenya languages, and I'm happy that we have worked with Abdullahi in so many instances in bridging those language barrier and in adult literacy and also in for literacy in the schools and the camps. So what we're bridging basically is make sure the foundational learning is accessible in a language that they understand. And especially in the refugee setup, it becomes more complex because we have several communities from Southern Sudan, from Ethiopia, from Kenya, from Somalia, from even other parts of the world who are coming to the refugee camps with their language of their catchments. So how do we now balance that to use what they know to understand what they don't understand? So that's the bridge we were trying to bridge that gap with Abdullahi in so many ways.
Yeah, and Abdullahi, to what extent has your, as you try to get books to learners, how crucial has EdTech been in terms of making this happen, a realization actually?
Well, it's not only Abdullahi. I will be unfair to take all the credit on my own. I work with communities and other stakeholders. EdTech now, what we're trying to do is we're moving with the world. As things get digital, we are digitalizing. The first time we collaborated with M-Lugha, Abdinoor's organization, was during COVID. We were using offline gadgets to allow students to revise when teachers were not able to go to class because of the virus, the COVID then. And now, what we do is, with little resources, we are trying to connect the schools to an internet, to not only internet, but also, the world we're living in is in danger now because of climate change. So with all our projects at the Refugee Youth Education Hub, we go green, we use solar, because where we operate in northern Kenya, that is Dadaab, Garissa County, and also where other refugee camps are, Turkana County, Kakuma, the sun is amazing. It comes from, it's 12 hours of sun every day. It's not something that is gotten in other parts of maybe Western world. So that's a privilege.
Yeah.
So we use solar to embark also. Education in tech and climate change. That's what two things that we are trying to balance and to overcome challenge.
Maybe now this is the cue to actually shed the light in terms of the kind of challenges that refugees and learners are going through, especially in a camp setting. Abdinoor, you kind of hinted about the fact that some of the content, it needs to be very inclusive for them. What else are we seeing as a challenge when it comes to learning for the refugees?
Thank you so much. I think some of the context, some of the challenges that we have really faced is the context in which the learners are learning. Knowing that they come from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different language backgrounds. So they come to a classroom where the language instruction is just one. And the teachers are also, some of them might not understand their local context. So at M-Lugha, what we have been doing really hard is to localize that content in terms of even the naming, in terms of attire, to make sure that every community gets the content that is relevant with them. And also culturally sensitive, because there's some content that is very sensitive. In some communities, it might be very sensitive, but in other communities, maybe it's okay. For example, if you use the word like pig in the Islamic setup, people will be like, why are you calling me pig or dog? Because there's some beliefs about that. So in other communities, maybe pig is okay. So we have to make sure this culturally sensitive content we're using. So and where we did not get the devices, we also publish books, which we partner with Abdullahi also. We have published multilingual books also for the community.
Abdinoor, and then how then do you balance between the different, the diverse set of learners that you have? Because people are coming into camps from different backgrounds, different contexts, and different cultures, as you've said. Is that in itself a challenge?
Absolutely. But the goodness is literacy is universal. Whichever language you speak, literacy is, you can access it in your own language. So what we have been doing is we have tried to use language experts from different communities who are going to help us in terms of content curation, content creation, and as well as in terms of creating even content for that specific community. So if you go to M-Lugha app currently, right now, if you go to a Maasai app, everything you see there from thematic areas, from the themes, from the clothing, attire, from the language, from even the names, has been localized into that specific. So I think we have bridged that using language experts from different communities to help us set up a literacy content which is fit for that community. So we have used local communities and also local language experts from that community.
And Abdullahi, another challenge that actually comes on is that the fact that these refugees, given the context in which they come in, many of them are probably on the move, or they're just there for a short period, or their mindset is that they might be moving a time later. How do you navigate this?
To me, I don't call them refugees. They are people who are displaced and putting them into a condition. And anyone can be displaced any time at any moment. So people should not be taking the peace and the love and the unity for granted. That said, yes, many people feel like they're going back. Somali refugees started coming to this country in 1991, thinking that 2-3 years or even months, Somalia will be peaceful. We're in 2025. Almost 40 years down the line, things haven't changed. They have found home away from home. Dadaab is a home away home, so is Kakuma. So people have adapted, like the refugees from Somalia, from South Sudan, Ethiopia, Congo, the third generation feel like they're Kenyans. Many at times people think these camps are just idle people who just wait handouts or like humanitarian funding. There are people who are resilient, there are people who are doing things. There are tech centers, community-led tech centers, like the Refugee Youth Education Hub Tech Center, where we are training youth who are eager. We don't have the capacity to train thousands. When we call for an application, calling for like a short course, like we are training graphic designers, 60 positions are open. We get thousands of applications. That tells you the need. That tells you the agency. And these are people with history of displacement. And they know one day, be it be true, they will be back to their countries.
Yeah.
And with that, the only weapon they can weaponize themselves is education and skills.
Yeah. So,
and that is what we're trying to offer in Refugee Youth Education.
So how do we bridge this gap, and especially this demand that you're talking about? Clearly, there's the need for refugee learners to actually be onboarded into some of these programs. How can we bridge this gap?
We can bridge this gap by collective responsibility. Collective responsibility, I mean, when we have collaborations. Of course, I have to be grateful. The great county of Garissa and the great county of Turkana are already having conversations. Kenya has built a laid foundation under a new project called the Ushirika Plan. The Ushirika Plan is a narrative that is changing whatsoever that was in the past. Kenya is accepting curriculum. For the first time, the Kenyan curriculum system is rolled out in the schools. And the certifications, forever I knew, were under the Kenyan system. The Ushirika Plan allows movements of these students, businesses, call them people with ideas, to come and travel.
Abdinoor, let's talk about technology tools or platforms. What are you using currently with the refugee learners, and how are those selected to fit these contexts? So we're talking about connectivity, devices, language and culture. What technological tools are you using at the moment?
I'll start with what Abdullahi said during the COVID, which he mentioned that we partnered with a program called Elimu Mashinani, which we did. What we did is we put educational content Form 1 to Form 4 into a server, a small server, portable server, which doesn't need internet. So once you switch on the server, it can be accessed by 100 users in 100-meter radius. So you just need devices to access either phone, tablets, or any other kind. So we have bridged that gap of connectivity since the server doesn't need internet. So what we did as a solution is give them offline content, which doesn't need internet, because internet has been a huge challenge. And now we also use the servers to store the content, even for teachers who want to store their content. We train them, and we had installed them in several schools with Abdullahi. That's for the secondary schools. For the primary schools, what we did is with M-Lugha now, we provide them offline app, which they will learn the foundation of literacy and numeracy using their first language. So we have used M-Lugha for the pre-primary, the foundation learning, and also for secondary schools, we have used the Elimu Machine Learning server, which doesn't internet. So for all our solutions, we made sure connectivity is not a problem. In most schools that we also put M-Lugha, we use solar panels, solar power tablets in parts of Wajir, whereby we eliminated the issue of even the power connectivity. So we have eliminated the internet connectivity, the power connectivity in one setup. So we have used a mobile app, which is offline, and also used the server, which is also for secondary school. So those are the two custom-made kind of technology that we realize fit for the community. And also non-technology stuff, like, for example, mentorships, and also adult literacy, where we're providing vernacular books for the adult literacy.
Yeah. Abdullahi, on your part, can you share a concrete example of how EdTech has improved the learning outcome for refugee learners in the program that you're running?
What we have done on collaboration is that when I was starting the libraries, we were all offline. We have digital content in our libraries today, which are audio. Many a times we get lazy on reading a book. It needs discipline that many people may not carry. So we have audio availability. And we're talking about, I don't know how to put it, in an area where a power, something simple like getting connected to the power, is a privilege. Internet is a privilege. So we have put all our facilities and schools we collaborate with an internet connection and good flow of solar energy. And with that, we have education content with collaboration with, we have gone extra mile to collaborate with the Kenyan Curriculum Institution. We have content from Kenya Literature Bureau, KLB, and these contents are available. I'm coming back to the lady who inspired me the first day.
Yeah.
She left the school, but a student like her today have access to an audio of revised biology book or a mathematics book.
And she doesn't have to wait for 11 days before she gets access to a book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And ours as a community-led is agency. There's no bureaucracy. There's no this, wait, and that. We are at the center.
Abdinoor, let's talk a bit about from the policy perspective. A lot of our episodes throughout the year, we've been looking at the ICT policy 2021. So from your perspective, how can policy regulation support your work, especially when it comes to working with refugee learners?
So first of all, I always keep saying that some policies work best in specific areas. We cannot have a policy that works for everyone at this best. For example, if we try to, I always keep saying homegrown problem for homegrown solutions. Like you can't import an innovation from outside the country to come work in the refugee camps. I normally take an example of Google Map. Like when you're going to Lower Kabete, that lady at Google Map will never say Lower Kabete. She will say Lower Kabit because she just read. So there's no kind of localization in everything. So what I'm saying is make sure, even if you're at policy level, at the refugee setup, what policies work best? Because as you understand, they're in the different contexts. They are facing different challenges than the other person. the other people, especially in terms of mobility. I think Abdullahi should talk about mobility. Like students cannot even come to Garissa to study or go to Nairobi to study because the mobility issue for the refugees.
Yeah, the incumbent policy.
So what I'm saying is, as at policy making level, is the policy favoring the refugee communities because they don't enjoy the same benefits like another like the Kenyan student. Since they are limited by several infrastructure in terms of mobility, in terms of resources. So policy is good, but is there a policy for that is custom made for the refugee communities? Because I believe a policy that was just made for the national outlook, I think cannot fit for the refugee.
Yeah. Abdullahi, what do you think? I like what Abdinoor is saying here, that the ICT policy 2021, for instance, is quite kind of like a blanket cover that is kind of overlooking the needs for the refugee learners. From your perspective, what needs to be done from a policy perspective to make your work easier?
I like what Abdinoor alluded to that mobility, the issue of the movement, which now I don't want to go back. I think after the implementation next year of the Ushirika plan, that will be overcome. And what needs to be done is that it is ambitious, but the government is trying to have inclusive activities on all its projects, including the ICT, the implementation, what's called the
ICT policy.
The ICT policy implementation.
Yeah.
So this will also expand. And to me, the refugee communities, as we speak, service delivery by UNHCR. Of course, I don't speak for UNHCR. Mm-hmm. I speak on my own. And government of Kenya are trying to integrate service delivery to both refugees and the host community. There's no necessarily talking about refugees without talking the host. Look at the way geographically the refugees are located. Garissa County and Turkana County are arid and semi-arid regions. And many are at times the drought comes in. So both the refugees and the host have the same need. If it becomes food, if it becomes school, and it will be unfair for the international community to exclude part of it. So they're both there. Yeah. And these host communities have elected members and political representation. So it will reach.
So Abdullahi, this is actually, let me take your final comments, because this show is airing, is the last show we're having for 2025. So as we look ahead to 2026, when it comes to refugee learners, what are you hoping to change, to come as a change for next year?
Inshallah, my plate is full of hopes for 2026. In terms of policy, in this country, there are a lot of positive conversations going on. This year, for the first time, the Refugee Youth Education Hub is presenting a document in the world, in the Global Refugee Forum that will be in Geneva next month. And that has a lot of content in it, including tech in education and to improve inclusion of refugees and host communities in Kenya to all policies, and also advocating for climate change. So next year, inshallah, this light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, what about you, Abdinoor? Looking forward into 2026, what are some of the things that you hope will be addressed when it comes to refugee learners?
Thank you so much. And I think 2026 will be a for the refugee communities after the partnership with Raspberry Pi Foundation. It's a UK-based organization, and we rolled out creative coding and robotics curriculum in Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera. And it's something that we're hoping to extend to the refugee communities. So in the next the first quarter of the communities, and we are going to incorporate that with the digital skills, hopefully. So next year the theme will be digital skill, creative coding, and robotics for the refugee communities from our end, in partnership with amazing organizations like Refugee Youth Education Hub. So next year it will be about digital skills, digital literacy, and creative coding and robotics with partnership from Raspberry Pi Foundation. And also we have partnered with Mawingu, ISP, to provide internet to the schools that we are going to select, hopefully. So it's a partnership that we are working on.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. That was quite insightful, and it's also important to show that we do need to think about refugee learners moving ahead. Well, that's it for this edition of EdTech Mondays Kenya. Remember to follow us on social media using the hashtag EdTech Mondays Kenya to share your thoughts, and let's keep the conversation going. Special thanks to our sign language interpreter, Ms. Rose Omolo. My name is Ian Ofula. Until next time, goodbye.
EdTech Mondays Kenya is supported by the MasterCard Foundation Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning in partnership with EdTech East Africa.